Tight end is arguably the most make or break position in fantasy football because the market is razor thin for consistent production. So today, I'm giving you the names you need to start and sit to give you just the advantage you need over your week 1 fantasy opponent. Let's kick this video off by starting Tyler Higbee against the Seattle Seahawks. Higbee was sneakily in the top 10 among fantasy tight ends last season, and he even cracked the top 5 in targets with over 100 of them. Of course, when did the majority of that volume happen for Higbee? After Cooper Kupp went down. That opens the window up for Tyler Higbee, who blew guys like Van Jefferson and Ben Skowronek out of the water in snaps and targets in 2022. Now, the actual matchup against Seattle helps Higbee's case even more. The Seahawks gave up the most fantasy points per game to the tight end position at 14.8 last year. On top of that, Jamal Adams is out, and starting inside linebacker Jordan Brooks is also questionable. The stars are aligning for Higbee to have a breakout performance in week 1, and if Cooper Kupp is out, he could mess around and be in the top 3 for scorers this week due to the injuries of premier talent like Travis Kelce and George Kittle. Let's also go ahead and start David Njoku against Cincinnati. Now, I just said I would sit Amari Cooper yesterday, so how does this make any sense, Corey? Well, in a nutshell, the threshold of having a good performance at tight end is a lot lower, and I think Njoku ends up being a productive target even with Elijah Moore being added to that receiving core. But wait, there's more. David Njoku is what you would classify as a big play tight end, with a yards per route run mark of 1.53, placing him in 9th among tight ends last season. His 36 catches that resulted in either a first down or a touchdown put him in 8th at the position. Why does this matter? Because Cincinnati just gutted their over-the-top help by losing both Von Bell and Jesse Bates at the safety position. If Njoku runs anything close to a seam up the middle, it's against the new safety core in Dax Hill, who played very limited snaps for Cincinnati last year, and Nick Scott, who just came over from Los Angeles and now has to learn a whole new defensive scheme. Pile that on top of the fact that for the first time in a long time, Deshaun Watson has had the whole offseason to prepare instead of being tossed in mid-season, and I think we see the beginning of an improved passing attack in 2023, and lucky for Njoku, he should be in a prime position to take advantage of it. Kyle Pitts has a sneaky good opportunity against the Carolina Panthers this week, so we'll go ahead and start him. Pitts has garnered so much hate because of the sky-high expectations we set for him going into 2021, and after putting up a 1,000-yard rookie year, this last season was an absolute train wreck. There's no way to sugarcoat it. There was instability at the quarterback position, which almost always shakes things up from a volume perspective for a pass catcher, and the guy caught just 28 of 59 passes before his season ended due to injury. The funny part is, that low catch rate was not at all the fault of Kyle Pitts. Pitts had by far the worst catchable target rate of any tight end who ran at least 200 routes last year at 59%. The average catchable target rate at the tight end position was 79%. This man was a whole 20% below the mark. Pitts and Desmond Ridder have had the whole offseason to mesh, knowing that Ridder is their planned QB for the entirety of 2023 instead of playing the guessing game between him and Marcus Mariota. Let's also not forget that Kyle Pitts ran a 4.49 40-yard dash, an unbelievable mark at the position. With so much focus being on Bijan Robinson, I could see Pitts being a bit overlooked by NFL defenses, starting with a Carolina defense that's a bit bruised up with Brian Burns and Dante Jackson both listed as questionable. At the end of the day, Kyle Pitts is a freak athlete with fresh legs heading into week 1. Even if injuries do come up again throughout the season, he has a prime opportunity to show out here. The question on Noah Gray is flying everywhere. And I say if Travis Kelce is out and you don't have a feasible backup at tight end, you go with Noah Gray. Not only does he have Patrick Mahomes at his disposal, who threw for over 5,000 yards last season and knows how to spread the ball around as good as anybody out there, there isn't a definitive option that would eat up a ton of volume on this Chiefs team to prevent Noah Gray from having a productive day. That hasn't been the case since Tyreek Hill. Juju Smith-Schuster is gone. He was second on the team in targets behind Kelce in 2022. Kadarius Toney, who is penciled in as the wide receiver 1 on this depth chart, is questionable with a knee injury and was a limited participant in practice on Tuesday. That leaves MVS, who is primarily used as a deep ball target a couple of times per game, Sky Moore, and Noah Gray, who was right up there in terms of snaps with more than Sky Moore and nearly as many as MVS in 2022. Now the fact that he's playing Detroit also helps out as well, seeing that the Lions allowed the 7th most fantasy points in the entire league, with defense as a whole being a struggle point for them last season. Not to mention, 2 of their first 3 draft picks were spent on offensive weapons in Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta, So it'd be up to rookie first rounder Luke Campbell to be the difference. Now the players we will be sitting in week 1. We are sitting Luke Musgrave against the Chicago Bears. Musgrave is ultimately in a decent spot considering that the tight end room in Green Bay has been completely wiped. I do think, especially in a market that is horribly shallow right now, that breaking the top 20 in a standard PPR format is something that is very doable for somebody like Luke Musgrave. However, Green Bay has built up a historic reputation of letting their rookies learn and ease into the offense, and they take their time doing it. Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love all sat for years. Yes, that's at the quarterback position. So we'll look at closer examples. Christian Watson got one chance to catch a deep ball in week 1 of last year, and then was essentially filed out of the offense for 2 months before being let back in. Romeo Doubs also had minimal involvement despite having a phenomenal preseason. And who got the ball the most? The backfield. The veterans in Aaron Jones and now A.J. Dillon saw plenty of touches, and Green Bay ran the ball at one of their highest rates in the last decade at 44% because that's where the experience is. I'm sure Luke Musgrave gets a couple of chances on Sunday considering he is the tight end 1 with Robert Tonyan and Mercedes Lewis out of the team, but I can't see a scenario where Jordan Love just starts shoveling the ball in his direction a couple of times per drive. Also, with all the holes that this Bears defense has, the linebacking core is not one of them. It's actually their strength. They went out and scooped up Tremaine Edmonds from Buffalo, TJ Edwards got signed from the Eagles, and Jack Sanborn impressed in the later stages of 2022 for Chicago when given the opportunity. On top of that, this unit allowed the 5th least amount of points to tight ends last season in standard PPR. Tyler Conklin should get the week off if he's on your fantasy team, as there is no reason to start him against Buffalo and take that chance in week 1. He truly impressed last year with 5 double-digit fantasy performances while dealing with a Jets passing attack that was anything but impressive. But now it's a new year with upgrades at nearly every position. Aaron Rodgers takes over at quarterback, and that would normally help a tight end's output, but he brought Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb with him. Cobb is essentially just going where Rodgers does at this point for the occasional design play. He didn't do much in Green Bay last year, but Allen Lazard, he's a threat. He's coming off of a season with a career-high 100 targets, 788 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. He is the definitive wide receiver 2 behind Garrett Wilson, and Wilson is someone that everybody is anticipating will explode this year after Aaron Rodgers started saying the guy has a similar makeup to a young Devontae Adams. Now that is high praise. Then you have the new backfield move in going out and making Dalvin Cook the 10th highest paid running back in the league to offset Breece Hall. I just feel like Tyler Conklin could be lost in the music, and we haven't even talked about Buffalo yet. The Bills are not nice to tight ends. They were the only team in 2022 that did not allow a single receiving touchdown to the position throughout the entire season. Let's not mess with Taysom Hill against the Tennessee Titans. Look, last year and especially a couple of seasons ago, this guy was an absolute cheat code. You were exposing a complete loophole by going out and getting somebody who could throw, catch, and run the ball effectively all in a day's work. That was a lot more feasible when the Saints had question marks at the quarterback position. This isn't Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton taking turns under center anymore. The Saints have Derek Carr under a 4-year, $150 million contract. So what's the big deal, right? Carr can just throw to Taysom Hill if he isn't going to have spot starts. That's the whole reason he's a utility. Except for the fact that Taysom Hill isn't even listed as a tight end on New Orleans' depth chart anymore. It's Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, and Jimmy Graham. Hill is strictly listed as a quarterback 3. Now, that doesn't mean he won't get used in those trick plays, but the guy hasn't played in more than 50% of snaps in a game since week 17 of the 2021 season. Now the Titans, they allowed the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends last year, but let's not fall for that. They run the ball a ton and can eat up plenty of time of possession, and I'm just not satisfied personally with starting someone in Taysom Hill who is strictly labeled as a specialty player with low usage. Thank you so much for watching. As always, feel free to drop any questions I was unable to answer in the comment section below. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if I taught you anything about fantasy football today, and we will see you in the next one.